What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey and welcome to another miniature rescue. Today we're going to take a look at a giant space dinosaur for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Space dinosaurs, you say? Well, yeah, the Seraphon are an army option in Age of Sigmar that are made up of dinosaurs from space. Am I stressing the space part enough? I feel like there isn't a grander way to say it, but I imagine you get what I'm laying down. Personally, I have always been interested in this army. There are a ton of models that go way back through the Age of Sigmar and into the old world, so the variety is pretty large. Sometimes that means you have to deal with the older pewter models or less than perfect plastic kits, but for buying off of eBay, that is probably the best place to be. Just a lot of stuff. There are a ton of deals to be had on eBay, and the odds of getting really lucky go up with a range of this magnitude. For example, here is a Carnosaur from the Warhammer website. This is a newer plastic kit that looks absolutely insane. It's a smaller dinosaur riding a bigger dinosaur. I'm not sure that Warhammer gets better than this. Like, in a vacuum, this is probably the best thing about Warhammer in general. The other day I was browsing eBay and I came across a Seraphon Carnosaur for 40 bucks. The rider wasn't attached to the mount and the listing was pretty bare bones, but I figured I'd take a shot. To my absolute surprise, everything was there, and other than some mold lines and small gaps, it was pretty much ready to go. Let's take a quick look at eBay and see how I did. Was $40 too much for this model? And how much should you pay if you want to pick one of these up used? After doing a quick search and sorting it by buy it now and lowest price, it looks like there aren't a lot of these guys floating around right now. The minimum is a pre-assembled and painted model for 50 bucks, which I suppose isn't too bad if you already like those colors. From there, we start to get into a weird place where you might as well just buy it new. Check this out. This is gonna blow your mind. I'm gonna go onto the Games Workshop website and look up this particular model. It's $85. That's kind of a lot. And while it fits the bill for a model this size from Games Workshop, here's the crazy part. The Start Collecting box with the same model and a bunch of extra ones goes for a whole $5 more. Yeah, $90 for a massive savings. It honestly doesn't even make sense that they continue to sell the other one. Nobody should buy it. It looks like my purchase was mostly okay. $40 is probably a little high, but it feels okay for not having gotten the rest of the starter box. If you are in the market for a Carnosaur, I recommend picking one up for anything below $40. Otherwise, just buy the Start Collecting box and start a new army. Alright, so we have our model. Let's prep it for priming and get it ready for one of my favorite parts, picking colors. There are some mold lines that I took off, but really not too many. Lucky so far. And for gaps, I really didn't find any that were terribly egregious, so a little bit of plastic glue and that should take care of them. Let's prime this guy up with some Stino Rose Black, and while it's setting up, we can get started on the idea of color. The first thing I like to do is head to Google Images and start collecting anything that stands out to me. I save all of the images in a folder for easy access during the entire project. That way, I can always reference something quickly if I need it. I really like having a reference photo while I'm painting. It keeps me motivated and in line with any idea that really stands out to me. I don't want to fully copy another paint scheme, rather use it as a guideline to learn from. Trying to paint to a standard that is higher, or at least trying to copy something in a picture, will help you become a better painter. There's something immediate that you can compare your results to in order to see if you did something correctly or if you need to continue working. Copying a paint job can do the same thing, and probably even more. But I do like to leave some things up to imagination and experimentation. It doesn't always work out, but it's a little more fun that way. I really like the way that this Space Dino came out. The contrast with the red and blue is really striking, and the lighter underbelly is definitely the way I want to take my paint job. So I'll use a similar combination and try and get results like this. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to start with a zenithal of white from above. This way I get some light to dark information on the model and I can see all of the details properly. For now, I'll leave the rider separate from the Carnosaur. For the main color, I want this guy to be red. I'm starting out with a bit of a darker red for now so we can build up color as we go. We'll end up putting some oranges in there to really brighten that up. To separate the color on the model and bring in some lizardy, stripy patterns, I'm going to use some black. I don't want it to be a huge line, but using black will give us more contrast overall and keep this guy looking like a proper lizard. I'll then follow that up with a light skin tone for the underbelly. The next major base coat will be all of the gold on the model. These Space Dinos really do love their gold, and I have the perfect one to use for this model. Vallejo Metal Color Gold is not usually my go-to. Not for the way it paints, it's actually some of the nicest paint I've ever used, but for its color. This gold happens to be a little on the green side. It just has a green tint to it, and I find that most of the time that just doesn't sell the color as much as I want it to. But in this case, since we have so much red, this gold is going to bounce right off of that model and really stand out. It just looks different and works really well. Now that our base coats are down and dry, I need to wash this model and bring out some of those details. Luckily, the scales and lines on the Seraphon models really make washes look good. There are a ton of cracks and crevices for the wash to seek out and settle into, and it gives the model a ton of contrast immediately. I'm gonna mix up some odorless mineral spirits and oil paints to make an oil wash. This medium purple pink should look pretty good around those recesses and give the underbelly a little more life as well. The best reason to use an oil wash in this case is that the details are so defined that we can put a ton of wash on the model, really saturate it and get the color in there. And then come back with a little sponge and wipe away any of the excess sitting on top that's not in the recesses. It's easier and a whole lot less work than traditional washes. I'm also going to be using a bit of Tamiya panel liner black to outline some of the larger details. There are some ropes hanging and gold pieces that need some separation from the body. The previous wash helped a little bit, but that was more about bringing the colors together. The black is a small and defined line of separation that brings in more contrast. It also works the same as the other wash, so we can put it on and take away as needed. After waiting for the oil washes to dry, I'm going to come in with a little makeup remover brush and lightly wipe away the excess wash from the raised details. This will leave the wash in the recesses and clean up the model, bringing back a lot of that original color. The next step will be bringing in a few more layers of color to define parts of the model. The underbelly has a good amount of raised skin where the wash didn't settle, so I want to go over that with some light flesh tone and clean up the whole area. Really, I'm just bringing back some of the color to the skin, making brighter areas brighter and leaving those dark areas really dark. This process is continued over the entire model, just adding a little bit more of that base color back into the mix and avoiding the recesses. For the large bones coming off of the saddle, I wanted to go bright on the inside and dark on the outside. So I started laying down some skeleton horde contrast paint to start off with and get that medium bone color. Then I came in with some ivory and lightened up the bases for each bone. If I were to do this without an airbrush, then I would wet blend each color in with the last, starting with the white to the light brown and moving my way to the outside to nearly black. But the airbrush is a great tool for doing these types of blends very quickly, and I'm definitely going to take advantage of that. Next up, we have burnt umber 3/4 of the way down the horns, and a very small amount of carbon black just at the tips. That pretty much does it for this main dino. We still have the rider and the base. Luckily, space lizards are not terribly difficult to paint, and again, because of the details in the model, we can paint up the rider rather quickly. Redgrass Games sent me this handle to try out, and I gotta say, it's pretty nice. It's got a good grip to it, swivels if you want it to, and I can put this model on top without a base. Kind of nice, tacky, sticky stuff on there. Best of all, it's magnetic. Alright, so a nice teal for this fella seems like a great choice, and for most dinos. And for the contrast this will bring in. There aren't actually very many details on this model. It looks really cool, but it's pretty much some underbelly, scales, and armor. Not a lot going on. Next up, a light spray of brighter and lighter teal from above. This doesn't do a whole lot, but up close you can see that the scales got some extra highlights. Much like doing a zenithal of white over black, but not quite as stark. I'll fill in the armor with the same gold as the other dino. Then, once all of those base coats are dry, we can implement the same purple wash as before. With the teal, this works incredibly well and brings out all of that dino detail. I also decided to add a bit of color to all the gold. I mixed up a kind of teal wash that makes it look a little bit like patina, but of course gold doesn't end up looking like this. Space dinosaurs though, 100% do. So I laid this down pretty thick on the armor of the rider and the mount. That's another level of color and depth and just looks cool. After all of the oils are dry, I lightly take away the excess and edge highlight all of the armor with some bright silver. That's about it for the rider. Like I said, not a ton of detail, but the scales and sculpting do a ton to make this little guy look really fantastic. Last but not least, the base. Seraphon seemed to go a couple of different ways with basing. There's the minimal sand and grass and rocks, or the over-the-top jungle look. Today, we're gonna split that right in the middle and go with both. I did end up going to a pet store to pick up some aquarium plants. They look really fake, but there are a couple of ways that we can help that and bring them into the scene without standing out too much. Let's start with the base layers first. As you do. Some texture mud will start us off nicely, followed up by a smattering of small rocks. I found these square cubes at a dollar store a long time ago, and it felt like this is the perfect time to actually include them into something. I want them to look like rocks, but weirdly perfect and not really natural. Kind of perfect for dinosaurs from space. Using some PVA, I put down a good variety of green static grass. That really fills out the base and makes that red pop. After I began work on the aquarium plants, giving them a good coating of matte varnish will take a lot of that fake plastic shine away. After that, I give the bases a little bit of brown paint and the upper parts some green. This really makes them look more like something that's been sculpted and painted rather than that cheap rubbery material for fish. I also try not to use very much of it on the base itself. Some plants around the sides like he's crawling through the jungle, and a little one up front just to balance it out. Once everything was in place, I used some grass tufts of varying colors to just fill out some of the blank areas. Honestly, it's not too bad for a base, some good variety and color. Once all of it dried, I painted the base from black and called it a day. I've always been a fan of the lizard men in Warhammer. For some reason though, I've just never really started collecting them. I did have a ton of fun painting this one, and there was a part of me that really wanted to keep it. Instead, this model's gonna go right back up on eBay. I do enjoy this model, but it's the holiday season and I think someone else would appreciate it a lot more than I do. So if you are interested in supporting this channel beyond subscribing, please check out the eBay link in the description below. As always, the auction will start at the same price that I paid for this model and will be free shipping globally. Thank you again for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you like something about this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video. And of course, before I leave you this week, here is the completed Seraphon Carnosaur.